On this episode, I give you an overview of every debt solution and the price that comes with it. Let's get started.
Joining us this morning is Edward Sanchez, president of Money Sharp.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Money Sharp Show. I'm Edward Sanchez, and this is episode 20. I'm so excited to go over this one, specifically because I'm going to cover a big range of different debt solution strategies. I've been doing this for a long time. I think it's a long time, 1999. So I've seen everything. Thanks. I've seen everything out there. And the alternatives and what they come with, the baggage. Like any prescription drug, it comes with a side effect, right? And it can impact people differently. So I want you to understand this. When you sit down and you sit across from somebody and say, listen, I have a problem. I need you to help me with this, right? Here's my problem. You can either say, help me understand this so we can do this together, so I can be a part of the process, and how I can avoid this ever happening to me again, right? Or you could say, you know what, I'm just too busy, or I'm too important. Can you just handle this for me? I don't know. I don't want to see how you make the sausage. I just want to eat the sausage, right? I mean, that some people want that. So what I want you to be aware of is that the person on the other side of you, the other person sitting across from you, can most often have different motives. Different things that are motivating them and what they're presenting to you. So I'm not selling you anything, so I'm going to break it down for you. When you're negotiating with your creditors, I'll go through all these. So if you want to settle your accounts, okay, what's it going to cost you? Well, it's going to cost you credit. So if you have outstanding accounts, credit cards, and they're on your credit report, and you don't have money. So the name of the game here is, I want these off my credit report. I don't want to have outstanding balances anymore. What are you going to do? You're trying to save money. What are you going to jeopardize? Your credit. Okay, so if you have an outstanding debt and it's $1,000 and you haven't paid on it, it's been in collections for, let's say, 3 years. Okay, that's a lot of leverage. They haven't got any money from you. Very likely you're going to be able to negotiate that down to 60%, maybe 50%. It all depends how hard you can bend and you can push. So you're going to save a lot of money if you settle that debt. You settle that balance for 50 cents on the dollar or 30 cents on the dollar. That's a huge win because you just saved $700. But when you settle a debt, understand that it's going to go on your credit report as settled, which means if you paid it off completely, it's like turning in a paper to your professor and saying, here, I turned it in, you get stamped an A because you did A work, okay? But when you settle a debt, and it's going to it'll be reported that way on your credit report. When you settle a debt, it doesn't get reported that way. It's going to say paid as otherwise agreed upon, and basically you get a C minus. So instead of settling the debt, paying off the debt, and getting a boost in your score, it now has a zero balance, but because of the other than positive remarks that are on there, you're not going to get a bump up in your score, okay? So if the name of the game is to bring up your score, then you're going to have to pay off that debt. If the name of the game is to get your bad history behind you because you don't have money, you have limited resources, then yeah, you can negotiate and settle for lower amounts, but you're jeopardizing your credit, okay? So you have to understand where you are in your life. Do you have a strong vehicle? Do you have your mortgage? I have my house. I have a car. I'm not going to need credit for the next 24 to 36 months. Then you may be able to finagle and do some things that could be somewhat damaging to your credit because you're not going to need immediate credit right away. But if you're in an apartment and you're trying to buy a house in the next year or the next 2 years, now is not the time to be doing things for the sake of saving money that's going to hurt your credit, because you're not going to be able to rebound and come back that fast. Consolidating debts. When you consolidate debts, you take 5 debts and you roll them into one, and then you're going to add on the cost or the price of whatever the lender is charging you to smash all those debts together, okay? Or when you move a debt, when you get those offers in the mail from the credit card company, it says 0% transfer, balance transfer, but you're still paying 0% interest. But they tell you it's not a 0% transfer. 0% interest on a credit card if you do a balance transfer, and then they hit you with you're going to pay 3% of the balance. Okay, so it's a really expensive transfer to gain a 0% interest on a credit card. Okay, So when you consolidate, there's always costs that get lumped in on top of the debt. So if it's $3,000 debt, when you consolidate, you make it bigger. Just understand that. Refinancing, again, taking money out of your property equity, not a good idea to roll any credit card debt into a mortgage because you're going to multiply that by 1.5 times just on the interest alone. Okay, so in a previous video, I talked about you take $30,000 of debt, you put it into a 30-year mortgage, and it ends up ballooning to $75,000 when it's all said and done. Very bad deal. Liquidating assets. So if you're trying to get out of financial trouble and you say, well, I've got a couple assets I can liquidate, I see this a lot. People will tap into their retirement plans, into their 401ks to pay off medical bills or credit card debt to avoid filing for bankruptcy, only having to file for bankruptcy because the credit card debt that they wiped out wasn't enough. And on top of that, they weren't at retirement age, so now they've got all types of tax penalties. Very, very hurtful, very damaging. So leave your retirement alone. Do not touch that 401k. Do not liquidate that. If you had a baseball card or something else that you can liquidate, a car you're not driving, I mean, get creative, but please do not touch your retirement. Let that stand where it is. Debt management plans, I talked about that. Not a big fan because it hurts your credit and it costs you a ton of money that you're paying. Listen, guys, you can get in trouble for free, right? So why are you going to pay somebody to get you into trouble? By telling you to slow pay your creditors and then ultimately tack on a bunch of costs. So that's just, you're paying someone to hurt your credit. Borrowing from relatives. Okay, so this can work, and this works for some of you very, very well. I don't recommend it. Okay, relationships are what they are. You love your family. You want to make sure that if you do borrow from a relative, you pay them back before anyone else. Okay, that's important. I'm gonna leave it at that. If you borrow from family, pay them back first. And then bankruptcies. Okay, so when you file for bankruptcy, what is that going to cost you? That's going to cost you credit. Obviously, it's going to cost you money to file. Bankruptcy attorneys are not inexpensive. They're not cheap. And in theory, they're going to be able to help you wipe out a big mountain of debt. So you pay $800 or $2,200, depending on where you are in the country. To file for bankruptcy, you wipe out $60,000 of debt. It looks like a win. But coming out of a bankruptcy, you've got a lot of rebuilding to do. And so you could take it on the chin for a long time with high interest rates or poor offers, subprime products. So all of these things, one could look better than the other, but it has to be a good fit for you. Understand that it comes with their own consequences, with their own side effects. One's going to cost you time, which is what the bankruptcy does, cost you the most, is time and credit. Others will cost you money if you're trying to preserve your credit. And the others, if you don't have money, it's going to cost you credit because you're sacrificing your credit in order to win that money. So that's the name of the game, guys. I hope that was helpful to you. If you have questions, or leave it in the comments below. As always, this is episode 20, and it feels good. I want to thank Dr. Wayne Dyer. May God bless your soul. I want to thank Anthony Robbins and Gary Vaynerchuk. I will see you guys in the next episode. All right, so here's the question. Consolidation and debt management plans look very similar, or at least the way I'm illustrating it look or seem very similar. But this is how it works. So if you have 8 credit cards and they total $25,000 and you consolidate them, basically what you do is you find one new lender. So you go to the bank and you say, listen, I need $25,000. And it's going to see Bank of America says, that's fine. That's fine, Ed. Here's a check for $25,000. I use that $25,000 and I pay off the 8 credit cards. So my $25,000 problem is now still a $25,000 problem, but I don't owe 8 people anymore. Now I owe just one person, and I owe interest on that. Okay, so that's a consolidation. If someone in the bank helps me do that, they're going to add in more fees other than just cutting me a check. Or I would go in and they say, we're going to cut a check to each one of these, and we're going to roll them we're going to scoop them all together. But in the end, you owed 8 people now. Now we own you. You owe me. Okay, so that's one creditor, and you're going to pay for that. That's a consolidation because everyone else has been wiped out. But all we did, on my side, all I did was move the debt around, and I added interest and fees. Okay, but many people will get in their brains, and they're like, well, I took money from here, and I borrowed money to pay them off. You just moved the debt around. There's no payoff. because you pay debt off with income, not with more borrowed money. Okay, so a debt management plan is where you go into a credit counseling firm and you say, oh, I've got 8 debts and I just can't handle it. It's too much for me, or I'm not making progress. I need some help. So they say, okay, we're going to negotiate a lower interest rate. We're going to negotiate a lower payment for you. And don't worry about paying them directly. Send us a payment, and that payment will pay off the 8 creditors and will also take care of their service fees for the benefit of managing these 8 accounts for you. So in turn, it feels the same because you were paying 8 people before, now you're just paying 1 person. But these 8 creditors in a debt management plan can break off. They can spin off. They can turn into a bad sitcom. And they can send you to collections. Where in the consolidation, now you're only dealing with 1 lender, and that's the only person you owe money to. So that's it.
Make your money sharp.